American warships are moving toward the Persian Gulf. Again, the headlines feel familiar, the language feels rehearsed, and the tension feels like something we've seen before. Officials call it deterrence, analysts call it strategy, the media calls it necessary. But millions of people around the world are asking a much simpler question. Why is it always Iran? Why does the United States keep circling the same countries again and again while calling it global security? This video is not about defending governments.
It's not about choosing sides. It's about power, patterns, and the uncomfortable truths most people are never encouraged to question.
Iran wasn't always America's enemy. For decades, Iran was one of Washington's strongest allies in the Middle East. Oil flowed freely, Western companies operated comfortably, and Iran's ruler, the Shah, was firmly aligned with US interests. Then in 1979, everything changed. The Iranian Revolution overthrew a US-backed monarch and replaced him with a government that rejected foreign control. That single act, choosing independence, reshaped Iran's fate. From that moment on, Iran wasn't judged by what it did, but by what it represented, a country that refused to submit. What if the most powerful country on earth wasn't spreading freedom, but controlling the world through fear, sanctions, and silent wars? For decades, the United States has claimed to defend democracy and human rights. Yet, in countries like Iran, Cuba, and Venezuela, millions of ordinary people tell a very different story. One of economic collapse, political isolation, and endless pressure from Washington. Iran, in particular, has become the centerpiece of America's long war without bombs. A war fought with sanctions, assassinations, cyber attacks, and propaganda. The question is no longer whether the US interferes. The real controversy is how far it's willing to go, and who pays the price. Tonight, we expose what the US has been trying to do in Iran, why it matters, and how similar tactics have devastated other nations that refused to obey. This is not a story you'll hear on the evening news. And once you hear it, you won't look at global politics the same way again. Since World War II, the United States has positioned itself as the world's ultimate power broker. Any nation that aligns with Washington is labeled an ally. Any nation that refuses is labeled a threat. Iran made its choice in 1979. When the Iranian Revolution overthrew the US-backed Shah, Washington didn't just lose an ally, it lost control. And the United States has never forgiven Iran for that moment of defiance. From that day forward, Iran became a permanent target of US pressure. Not because Iran attacked America, but because Iran refused to be ruled by it. This same pattern appears again and again. Cuba rejected US dominance, embargoed for over 60 years. Venezuela challenged US oil interests, sanctioned into economic chaos. Iran resisted US influence, isolated, punished, and demonized. The message is clear. Disobedience has consequences. Iran isn't just another Middle Eastern country. It sits at the crossroads of global power, energy routes, and ideology. Iran controls access near the Strait of Hormuz, major oil shipping lanes, regional allies like Hezbollah and Syria. For Washington, Iran represents a dangerous idea, a powerful nation that operates outside American rules. Iran doesn't use the US dollar as leverage. Iran doesn't host American military bases. Iran openly challenges US allies, especially Israel and Saudi Arabia. That's why US officials don't just talk about Iran's government. They talk about regime change, not reform, not dialogue, replacement. And every sanction, every cyber attack, every covert operation is designed with one goal: to make life so unbearable that the Iranian system collapses from within. Sanctions are often described as peaceful pressure. But for ordinary Iranians, sanctions feel like war. US sanctions have crashed Iran's currency, blocked access to medicine, destroyed small businesses, raised food and fuel prices. And yet, US officials insist sanctions target only the government. But how does a child suffering from cancer feel a targeted sanction? How does a family afford insulin when banks are blocked from global systems? This isn't accidental. This is economic strangulation. designed to create public anger, unrest, and desperation. The same playbook was used in Cuba, where shortages persist after decades. Venezuela, where sanctions worsened inflation and poverty. Sanctions don't topple governments. They punish people, and then blame their leaders. The nuclear issue is where controversy explodes. The US claims Iran cannot be trusted with nuclear technology. Yet the United States itself holds thousands of nuclear warheads. Iran signed the 2015 nuclear deal, agreeing to strict inspections. International inspectors confirmed compliance. Then came the shock. The US withdrew from the deal unilaterally. Why? Critics argue the deal wasn't about nukes. It was about limiting Iran's economic recovery. Once sanctions were lifted, Iran began growing again. And that was unacceptable to Washington. So the deal was destroyed. Sanctions returned, tensions skyrocketed, and suddenly Iran was blamed for reacting to pressure it didn't create. When sanctions aren't enough, covert operations begin. Iran has accused the US and its allies of cyber attacks on nuclear facilities, assassinations of scientists, sabotage operations inside Iran. One killing shocked the world. General Qasem Soleimani, assassinated by a US drone strike. To Iran, this was an act of war. To the US, it was defensive. But imagine the reverse. Imagine another country killing a top American general. Would the US call that peace? This double standard fuels anger, distrust, and endless retaliation, pushing the region closer to open conflict. Iran isn't alone. Cuba was punished for choosing socialism. Venezuela was punished for controlling its oil. Iran is punished for refusing submission. Different cultures, different systems, same outcome: economic isolation, political pressure, media demonization. The real controversy isn't whether these governments are perfect. It's whether the United States has the right to decide who deserves to survive economically, and whether global power should be enforced through suffering. Sanctions weaken economies. Aircraft carriers attack the mind. When an American carrier enters the region, it's not there by accident. Each carrier carries over 70 aircraft, cruise missiles, surveillance systems, and a message that doesn't need translation. We are watching. We are ready. Do not cross the line. For Iran, this creates constant tension. Respond too strongly and risk war. Respond too weakly and appear defeated at home. This is not about invasion. This is about control through fear. Markets react immediately. Currencies drop. Investors flee. Pressure without a single missile fired. If America is so powerful, why hasn't it attacked Iran? Because Iran is not Iraq. Iran is not Libya, and Iran is not defenseless. Iran has missile systems capable of reaching US bases. It has regional allies and proxy forces. It has cyber capabilities. And it has something far more dangerous: strategic patience. A war with Iran would disrupt global oil markets, trigger regional chaos, and drag the US into another endless conflict. Aircraft carriers project strength, but they also reveal restraint. The threat exists, but so do the consequences. Here's the irony. The more pressure America applies, the more resistant Iran becomes. Sanctions empower hardliners. Threats silence moderates. Military intimidation fuels nationalism. Instead of collapse, Iran adapts. It builds domestic industries, seeks new allies, and doubles down on self-reliance. What was meant to break Iran ends up reinforcing its defiance. So what is the end game? Not invasion, not peace, but permanent pressure. A frozen conflict where aircraft carriers circle, sanctions remain, and fear does the work of bullets. Iran stands firm. America looms overhead, and the world watches, waiting for a spark that may never come. This is not a war of explosions. It is a war of endurance, and it may define global power in the 21st century. If you want real geopolitical analysis, not headlines, subscribe, share, and join the discussion. Is this deterrence or domination?